Hi there, this is video on Oracle. Um, First to show, this is my Oracle Purge spec. This was quite useful back at level 60 for fights where, like Kaizen and GA, where you had to purge quite frequently, or else you'd heal up a lot. Um, so far, with level 65 raids, um, the only one that I can recall needing a purge is on Threngar. And so this spec for Oracle support is not that useful at the moment. But this is the spec, 61 Oracle. I have 3 Cabalist for increased wisdom, and then the 12 Inquisitor, so that way you get the Purge. Um, so far I was using Avenging Shield, Blessing of Penitence, because this affects your Ascending of Protection proc by 10%. Um, Swift Judgment could probably be changed. Um, Something I believe within raids, the flat increasing unmounted movement speed by 10%, I believe that counts as out of combat compared to like Supplicant's Haste, where you get stacks on yourself while in combat. That one definitely increases your combat movement speed. Um, but really, level 63, increased mana regeneration, Supplicant's Haste, probably are the main ones to go. Actually, with this spec, the Faith's Freedom is actually pretty good, because if you cast Ancient Heretic, it does put on Vex, but with Oracle, I never actually used that. Um, Diversify, Soulstream. Since the only thing really with this is that you have Purge, I'll just showcase the actual Oracle spec, which I don't have my bar set up though. Sorry, I did not realize that before I started talking here. So the main Oracle spec is 61 Oracle, 5 Inquisitor. Reason for this, no increase in spell power, not wisdom, is the Armor of Devotion is too good of a buff to pass up, increasing our critical hit chance by 5%. As well, 10 into Shaman, increasing spell power, and then again, too good to pass up 5% crit chance just from there. So other than your gear, you have 10% increase. With looking on crit chance on this, you'll see my gear gives me crit chance of 19.92, but then as well, I'm getting 5. That 5 is your talent. So right now, without buffs on, I'm sitting at 24.92. That's pretty much, I'm just 0.08% with my buff on of 30% crit chance. So pretty good crit chance. Now, since they both kind of play the same, and I don't have my bar set up on this Oracle spec, I'll go back to my bar, or my Purge spec. Now, thing is we have, I always suggest you read through the talents, see what affects what and how they modify stuff. Like, Trigger and Inspiration increases affected allies' attributes by 5%. Your Curse of Consumption, Curse of Frailty, now apply an aura around the enemy, buffing all with enemies within 10 meters of the initial target. Those two buffs, just like the Bard ones, useful on trash, but you don't apply them on boss fights where you have an Archon. Archon has the same debuff of those, except for their debuff lasts for 5 minutes. Ours only lasts for 1 minute. So you let the Archon do those debuffs, but on trash it is great to debuff. Now, of course, this is saying that the one you apply it on, it has an aura around it, so you probably want to apply it to one that tends to live longer in the trash pack. Obviously, killing trash over and over, you'll start to realize which ones tend to linger the longest. Um, but many reasons why always, when taking a spec, I highly suggest you look over your talents, always see and try and understand how they affect stuff. Whoever written a guide might have forgotten about something. Um, I can forget about stuff, so, and they sometimes also change things around. So it's always a good idea to always check and understand your own spec. Um, so Oracle is just like Bard. We share many things with Bard. One of those is, instead of anthems, we have Favor. Favor of the Current is increasing run speed by 15%. Marshaled Favor is the same thing as Fervor or Living Energy from the Chloro. So if you have Chloros, you don't have to use that. And then there's Defensive Favor, which is increased armor and resists. Uh, Depending on your makeup and what the type of fight is, you want to use different favors, of course. Um, Rogues and warriors tend to get power starved and energy starved quite often. So if you have a lot of them in the group and you don't have a chloro, you probably want to run marshaled favor um, to just help out their DPS, because if they're not energy starved, they're doing more DPS. Um, High movement fights. An Archon has a casted buff that's 15% movement speed, lasts for 30 seconds. I forget how often it comes up though, but with high movement, he might not be able to cast it. It all depends on what your Archon is playing exactly. Um, so you really want to communicate with your other support and know what your raid makeup is, or ask your raid leaders what one he wants you to run for which fights. Because if you have a Chloro and your Archon, it's not too much movement, you might be then asked to just run the defensive favor of, because the other two are covered. Um, Great thing about Oracle is we have one buff. It applies all our buffs from Oracle anyways. Then you want to put on your Inquisitor buff of increasing your critical hit chance, and then whichever favor you want to use. Now as you, well, as you can see, Purge, of course, in this one, um, we normally won't have I don't think we have Sanctioned Heretic. You might have Bolts of Depravity, but that's a hard cast, 3-second cast that you won't be using. Pretty much the only thing in Inquisitor that you'll be using is Armor of Devotion. Of course, if you use the Purge spec, Purge as well. This one has Kabbalist. With the Shaman one, the normal spec, there's nothing in here that we'd be using. So the rest is just in our Oracle. So we have a channel mana restoration, meditative chant. So anytime you're low on mana, you can use those in between fights. Even if you get starved in the middle of a fight, you're better off channeling for some mana instead of trying to slowly gain back mana while trying to fight. Um, but so instead of going into damaging stuff, I'll just scroll down here. So with our debuffs, Curse of Consumption, Curse of Frailty, those are the buffs that the Archon has 5-minute versions of. Um, so Corroded Defense is the same thing as the Archon's Illuminate, which only lasts for 20 seconds, or Bard's Jeopardy, Code of Jeopardy, where procs extra damage from anybody attacking. So lasts for 1 minute, and problem with this though, its duration is increased by 15 seconds for each emblem consumed when cast. There's 3 emblems, so that's a 45-second increase, which brings it to the max duration. So you really want to be watching this, keep it up all the time, even debuff, like you want to make sure that the current target is debuffed with this. So whether that be target switching, helping to debuff, unless something dies really, really quickly, don't bother debuffing it, but if you're spending like good amount of time, I'd say debuff. Other buffs here, Boon of Resurgence, Boon of Vitality. They're the raid buffs. They increase endurance. Is Boon of Vitality. They increase all the other stats. Is Resurgence. We have our favor buffs. Oversight is a toggle, which are emblems and insignia spells then do 50% less damage, but they hit up to 3 targets near your target. 3 enemies near your target anyways. So it's your way to toggle and do some raid damage, like AoE damage. So you get 150% with 3 targets. 2 targets, you're doing the same as if you just didn't toggle it on and just did damage to 1 target. Mass Bestowal casts all known boons and inspirations. So Boon of Vitality, Boon of Resurgence, inspirations, I'll get to that in a minute, like Inspiration of Battle, Inspiration of Survival, the Inspiration of the Keep, I'll get to those in a second. Whenever somebody dies, and gets rezzed, or a few people have died and rezzed, they won't have the boons on them anymore, so they'll have less endurance, they'll have less main stats and off stats. So with a few people dying, you want to re-buff people, even in the middle of a fight, so that way their DPS is better. So Inspiration of Battle is the same thing as the Bard's motifs. They last for 20 seconds. Inspiration Battle increases attack power, spell power, and does increase critical hit chance by 1% on all party members for 20 seconds whenever an insignia ability is cast. In a way, Oracle is kind of like warriors and rogues, where they have their builder abilities and then they have their finisher abilities. The insignias are kind of finisher abilities. So they refresh the inspirations. Inspiration of Survival. Absorbing 10% of incoming damage for 20 seconds, or up to just over 2k for my stats damage whenever an insignia is cast. Cannot be applied more than once every 10 seconds though. Inspiration of the Keep is just reducing damage. So boons and inspirations, they're like, we're normally always keeping up the inspirations. Good thing about Oracle is the inspirations actually are buffs on ourselves. They do last until death, I think, or something. Where the Bard's version, the motifs, they have 3 abilities that they can prep before a pull, and then as well their finishers refresh them. They can fall off the Bard. Ours, they can't. Anytime that we cast an Insignia, it procs because we have the 3 buffs on us. It procs the inspirations and they get reapplied. We'd never have to, as long as we've buffed, we never end up having to, they never fall off, is what I'm getting at. Really, it does say we have some healing stuff. Really, they're not that much healing. Um, Cleansing Chant, we have an AoE cleanse. We have Equinox Protection, which is kind of like Chloro's Radiant Spores. It goes on a target. When person hits that target, they have a 25% chance to gain an Absorb Shield. With one of our masteries, I believe that actually goes up to 35% chance. Let's change that mastery. Yeah, the tooltip didn't change. So with the mastery increasing senior protection proc to 10%, that is a 35% chance to get an absorb shield. Not the greatest, but any little extra kind of helps. Icy Cascade is a 2-second cast. It consumes all emblems on the cleric. Healing is increased by 100% for each emblem consumed. We have 3 emblems up, so otherwise it's with my gear 8 to 9,000 K health heal. Of course, with 1 emblem, 2 emblems, 3 emblems, it gets bigger and bigger. It's like, but it's a 2-second cast time. So you can help out a little bit with spot healing something, but you're not going to be great at it. And it does take a couple seconds. Defend the Fallen is the same thing as Orchestra. It also still does not stack with Lava Field. So the Archon and Bard Oracle, they need to coordinate when they're using these cooldowns. Defend the Fallen is 2 minutes, Lava Field is 1 minute. Sorry, that's where I missed off. Combat buffs here. With Orchestra, there's also Verse of Joy. Oracle has the same thing. It's called Resuscitating Chant. That is our Verse of Joy. It restores charge, mana, power, energy at each second for 15 seconds. So healers get some mana, DPS get some mana, rogues and warriors, they're not as energy starved, they get replenished for a bit as well. Normally you just pop it with the Defend the Fallen. So I have a Defend the Fallen macro, I just hit it twice and it does Defend the Fallen, then Resuscitating Chant. As well, we have 2 other combat buffs. Glacial Mark is a 1-minute cooldown, pretty much causing a little buff that lasts 30 seconds. And if they're below 50% health, the next heal on them heals for a little bit more. This one, it's with my stats, is saying 5.5k if they're below 50% health and they get hit by a next heal. Battle Fury here is where we get a lot of our DPS from. It's the same thing as Virtuoso on the Bard. But for us, what it does is it resets and reduces the cooldown of the cleric's insignias to 0. That is very important on one of our insignias called Glacial Insignia, which is cooldown of 15 seconds. This is our highest damage ability. So with it being set to a 0 cooldown, we can just spam Glacial Insignia for the whole duration of Battle Fury. And it also, what's nice is it prevents abilities from consuming emblems. So that means if we have 3 emblems up, they stay up. It also applies all emblem buffs on cast and lasts for 10 seconds. So other than that is we're getting into our damage here. don't know why Premonition is actually in the damage ability, because what it does, it's a 30-second cooldown that applies all emblem buffs, and then the next two emblem damaging abilities or healing abilities do not consume the emblems. So, because we have two buffs, one is a 30-second and one is a 1-minute cooldown, they both apply all three of our emblems, and they also allow our insignias to not use up our emblems. In a minute, I'll kind of explain why that's important. As you remember, Corroded Defense, it consumes all emblems when cast and increases duration of Corroded Defense. If we have used Premonition, it won't consume them, or if we have used Battle Fury, it won't consume them. We'll still have those emblems to use for our other abilities. Getting into the emblems, Emblem of Clarity, see what that does. It does some damage, but the other thing is it applies a buff to ourselves, reducing the cast time of our next damaging or healing non-emblem, non-instant ability by 2 seconds, and its mana cost by 33%. So anything that is 2-second cast time or shorter is all of a sudden instant cast. If we had a 2.5-second cast ability, it would be half a second cast. So this is really good to keep up all the time. There is a talent that does affect that, if I can remember where it is, though. Empowered here. Increases the effect of spell power on our emblems and insignias of blood by 10%. Insignia no longer consume Emblem of Clarity. So the only way this falls off is after 30 seconds. Now, if you remember, Premonition is 30 seconds long and applies all emblems. So in reality, we should never be casting Emblem of Alacrity. It should be always up, never fall down kind of thing. Reduces our cast time, very important. Emblem of Ice deals some damage, applies a buff to us, increasing the damage of our next damage or healing of our next non-emblem ability by 26%. So Emblem of Clarity makes things cast faster. Emblem of Ice increases damage. Then we have Emblem of Pain. Does some damage again, puts a buff on us, where the next non-emblem single target damaging ability applies a stack of Agony for 15 seconds. Upon reaching 3 stacks, Agony explodes, dealing some damage. And clearing all stacks, though. That lasts for 30 seconds. So really, it's just stacking a buff, a debuff, which then explodes and deals some damage. But as well, the other thing is, remember, with all 3 emblems on, our Corroded Defense lasts for longer. We do have Discerning Wave. What that does is, it's a conal attack. Other than just a conal attack, though, it also shields any deals damage to any enemies it hits, but it puts a shield on any allies that are hit. Just to kind of show you here, I'll close this out so you can kind of see. This is the effect that it causes. So that's the range where you want things to be in front of you, that big, huge cone that you just saw. This is, you can use every 30 seconds. Helps for AoE damage, but also it is a defensive cooldown as well, where if you're expecting quite a lot of damage to be incoming, you could help shield up all party and raid members by using this ability. Just in case you kind of missed it, I'll let you see it again. So that's the wave. Other than that is we have 3 insignias. Glacial Insignia, our hard-hitting ability, cooldown every 15 seconds. We have Insignia of Blood, which is a cast time of 1.5 seconds, which, with Emblem of Clarity up, becomes instant cast. Then we have Wasting Insignia, which deals a good amount of death damage over 15 seconds. So, but that one is a dot. We can't put multiple stacks of that dot up. So if that dot is up, we pretty much spam our Insignia of Blood until Glacial Insignia comes back or Wasting Insignia falls off. With here I have some K alerts here. I don't have everything at the moment kind of thing. So here are the emblem buffs. I have one for each so you can tell when you have to reuse those buffs. Here we have the Insignia, Wasting Insignia, the dot. And here we have the stacks of Agony, so when they reach 3 stacks, they explode and deal damage. Here we have the Corroded Defense, so if it's debuffed, same thing as Jeopardy. And then the Insignia of Protection that people can proc a little Absorb Shield on themselves. Just want to make sure about something. Yeah, Code of Jeopardy or Illuminate. It's checking for each one. If an Archon is good, they should be putting Illuminate on the target before the pull because it does last for 20 seconds and their Illuminate does not generate any threat or pull aggro, so it doesn't start the encounter. So they can pre-debuff. So if you haven't casted Corroded Defense, but this K alert is up, it could be the Archon's debuff, which will fall off quickly. So even if it's up right away at the beginning of the fight, you want to override it with yours that lasts longer. This is on, it's missing. I want to show it is active with a timer. Good thing I looked at this. Let's see here. Lava field, remember it does put down a little circle. If you're not in that circle, you're not getting the lava field buff. So most Archons do use a yell macro or a raid macro that tells that they put lava field down. You want to make sure that the circle has disappeared and then wait a couple seconds. The circle applies a buff that only lasts for 5 seconds. The last buff that is applied is when that circle fades, so for 5 seconds after that, they still have the buff. And you can still override the lava field. So you want to time out, or you want to be in the lava field circle, so that way you have the buff and know when it falls off for you to use Defend the Fallen. As well, Archons should be watching out that you haven't used Defend the Fallen and try and override it with their lava field. So all these K alerts can be found on the guild forums. Now that I've kind of explained everything here, I'll just kind of go into it. So remember, one buff applies them all, put whatever favor is needed, apply your Inquisitor buff. So what I suggest normally to start off, what I normally do is I use premonition first. Reason why is it applies to a stack of 2 that your next 2 abilities that would consume the emblems don't. So the other thing is because it does no damage, I can kind of use it right off the bat. I have my things. I have 2 stacks of premonition, as you can see here, but it lasts for 30 seconds. Nothing has happened. I'm not in combat, so I can preload and wait. So depending on how well you know your tank for pulling or starting the encounter, you can actually wait a while till just the last few seconds to then debuff and then attack. So I use blood here. The other thing is applying that reset or applying Battle Fury then reduces cooldown of Glacial Extinction to 0, which then I can just spam. But at that point I did not have any. So as you can see, Emblem of Clarity is not used up yet. So, but once the 2 emblems up here fall off, you want to just apply them. So all I alternate is Emblem of Ice, Emblem of Pain, applying those, and then using my Glacial Insignia, Insignia Blood macro. Of course, when the dot falls off, I use the Wasting Insignia to reapply it. When all 3 of them fall off, Premonition should be up, which I then can use 3 Insignias to get rid of the 2 emblems, and then I just go back to using the Emblem of Ice, Emblem of Pain, and so it's a 1-2 finisher, 1-2 finisher kind of thing. And really with the macro, you're just alternating between 2 different finishers. Either the dot of Wasting Insignia is up, you use the macro. If Wasting Insignia is not up, you use Wasting Insignia. Of course, when Battle Fury is up, though, all you want to do is spam Glacial Insignia, which is the macro one. So, that's pretty much what the spec comes down to. Of course, also you want to watch out that you debuff the target. See there, I forgot that Emblem of Clarity was not up, so I casted. Go and change some key alerts around here. Since it seems to use the last icon, let's see if that's using that icon. I guess I don't know what it does exactly. But that is the gist of it. So hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned a lot. Hope that you have fun playing Oracle. I don't say I'm that great at it. I pretty much have played Oracle probably the least. I probably played it more than Warden though, but I can at least pull some decent numbers with it. So for a basis, this is a good guide. Hope you take it from here.